The streets of New York City hide an ancient secret. This video reveals 23 forgotten blueprints that uncannily forecast the layouts of our modern megacities. You will learn to see the hidden patterns connecting your city to civilizations thousands of years gone. How did ancient planners encode a universal design language into their sacred cities? And why do we keep rebuilding their visions? What does the future of our own urban world owe to these prophetic designs from the distant past? This idea of prophetic urbanism suggests our modern skylines were dreamed up millennia ago. It is not that ancient seers gazed into crystal balls to predict freeways and subway lines. Instead, it is about a profound recurrence of design principles, a hidden grammar of city building that surfaces again and again across the span of human history. Think about the central axis, a grand spinal cord organizing a city's major functions, or the radial pattern where streets spiral out from a powerful core. Consider hierarchical zoning, which naturally separates sacred spaces from marketplaces and residential quarters. These are not just aesthetic choices. They are deep-seated solutions to universal human needs for order, for defense, and for social connection. As urban historian Dr. Lena Petrova explains, these patterns emerge because what people fundamentally require from their cities has not changed all that much over thousands of years. We still need to move around efficiently, feel safe within our communities, and gather in shared spaces. Modern planners, often believing they are inventing something entirely new, frequently stumble upon these very same templates. This challenges the entire idea of linear progress in urban design. It suggests that the evolution of human settlements is less a straight line and more a spiral, where we keep circling back to the same powerful, proven ideas. So when you walk the orderly grid of your own downtown, you might be walking a path first laid out in a forgotten desert metropolis. And that brings us to the first and perhaps most influential of these prophetic blueprints, the legendary grid of a city that defined order for the ancient world. The city of Mohenjo-Daro rose from the fertile plains of the Indus Valley over 4,000 years ago, a marvel of foresight etched in brick and clay. Its builders laid out a geometric grid of streets with an almost mathematical precision, creating broad main avenues that intersected with smaller lanes to form uniform city blocks. This was not an organic village that grew over time. It was a conscious creation, a fully realized urban plan conceived centuries before the glory of Rome or Athens. Walking through its ruins, you are struck by its uncanny familiarity. The layout feels logical, efficient, almost modern. It is the same underlying logic that would one day shape the uniform blocks of Barcelona's Axial district and the relentless grid of Chicago. But the genius of Mohenjo-Daro was not just in its street plan. Below those orderly streets ran a hidden network of baked clay pipes, a sophisticated drainage and sanitation system that served homes and public baths. The city prioritized public health with an understanding that would not become common again for millennia. They used standardized bricks, ensuring every building, every drain, every well was part of a cohesive whole. This was a city divided into zones with separate areas for craftspeople, traders, and residents, all connected by that relentless grid. It proves that the very idea of a planned city, with hygiene and order as its founding principles, is not a modern innovation at all. It is an ancient blueprint, one that was lost to dust for ages, only to be independently rediscovered. And as this concept of planned urbanism traveled, it found a new and powerful expression along the fertile banks of another great river. While Mohenjo-Daro embodied a practical order of bricks and drains, another civilization was mastering a different kind of blueprint altogether, one written in sunlight and stone. On the banks of the Nile, the ancient city of Thebes was laid out not just for the living, but for the gods. Its entire design followed a sacred east-west axis, meticulously aligned with the daily journey of the sun. This was more than urban planning. It was cosmology made concrete. The city's main processional way formed a powerful spiritual corridor, flanked by colossal temples and palaces that channeled movement and vision toward the horizon. Walking this path was a physical act of participating in a divine drama, a reaffirmation of the pharaoh's role as the link between the earthly and the celestial. This concept of a central, symbolic spine is astonishingly persistent. You can trace a direct line from the sun-scorched avenues of Thebes to the grand ceremonial expanse of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where monuments and museums create a narrative of national identity. You see it in the triumphant sweep of the Champs-Élysées in Paris, leading the eye and the citizen toward the Arc de Triomphe. According to Egyptologists, this axial design was the physical expression of a core principle known as Mat. This was the Egyptian concept of cosmic balance, truth, and order. The city's layout was a machine for maintaining Mat, its strict orientation and the hierarchical placement of every structure reinforcing a precise social and religious order. It created an urban story where everyone, from the high priest to the common laborer, understood their place in the universe simply by walking through the city. This ancient practice of using a central axis to impose meaning, direction, and a narrative on a cityscape is a foundational principle we have never abandoned. From the divine order along the Nile, we journey next to a city whose very name is synonymous with legendary planning. In the bustling intellectual heart of ancient Greece, a radical new idea for city building took shape. The city of Miletus, rising from its ashes after a Persian conquest, became the canvas for the architect Hippodamus. His vision was a complete departure from the organic, winding streets of older settlements. He laid out a formal, rigid grid of rectangular blocks, carving the city into distinct zones for public, private, and religious life. This was the birth of rational urban planning in the Western world, a system so logical it feels instantly familiar today. Hippodamus did not just design streets, he designed a society. By separating the bustling agora, the sacred temple precincts, and the quiet residential quarters, he created a template for order and efficiency. This is the direct ancestor of our modern zoning laws, the very rules that keep a noisy factory from opening next to a quiet neighborhood. You can walk this ancient Greek plan today in the orderly streets of downtown San Francisco or the expansive grid of Buenos Aires. These cities, though separated by millennia and oceans, share the same foundational DNA. Hippodamus was so influential he earned the title father of European urban planning. He theorized about the ideal city size, believing a community should be large enough to be self-sufficient but small enough for every citizen to participate in its governance. His plan made the agora, the public square, the undeniable heart of the city. This was the space for commerce, for conversation, for politics, a direct parallel to our modern central plazas and town squares where communities gather. The grid was more than a convenience for navigation. It was a physical manifestation of a new, democratic ideal, where the layout of the city itself was intended to foster a particular way of civilized life. While the Greeks were pursuing this rational, human-centered order, a parallel revolution in urban design was unfolding on the other side of the world. Far to the east, another civilization was perfecting the city as a cosmic diagram. The Tang dynasty capital of Chang'an was not merely a place for people to live and work. It was a vast physical representation of the universe itself, built to precise celestial specifications. Enclosed within massive walls forming a near-perfect rectangle, the city was a monumental grid of streets, all rigidly aligned to the north-south cardinal directions. This was not an arbitrary choice. The emperor's palace sat at the northern apex, the supreme point of power, gazing down the central axis that ran the entire length of the city. To the south lay the bustling, regulated marketplaces. This strict orientation placed the Son of Heaven in his cosmologically correct position, mirroring the North Star around which the heavens eternally turned. Every citizen, from the highest official to the humblest merchant, understood their place in this ordered universe simply by navigating its streets. The design was rooted in ancient Chinese philosophy, drawing from the well-field system of land division and Confucian principles that emphasized social harmony through clear hierarchy. Historians point out that the city's walls, its 12 precisely positioned gates, and the grand width of its main avenues were all determined by the principles of Feng Shui. This was the art of geomancy, an effort to align human construction with the invisible energies of the earth and sky. The goal was to create perfect harmony between the human world, the natural world, and the spiritual realm. Chang'an was a machine for generating balance and prosperity, and its blueprint proved incredibly resilient. You can walk in its shadow today in the serene, grid-like streets of Kyoto, Japan, which was meticulously modeled after the Chinese capital. You feel its enduring presence in the foundational layout of Beijing's Forbidden City, where the same north-south axis and symmetrical order continue to command respect. This was urban planning as a sacred act, creating a template so powerful it defined East Asian capitals for 1,000 years. And as we will see, this profound idea of building a city to mirror the cosmos was not confined to the old world. An identical impulse was taking shape entirely independently across the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Across the Atlantic, in the highlands of Mexico, the builders of Teotihuacan were also mapping the heavens onto the earth. The city's heart is the Avenue of the Dead, a colossal central axis stretching for miles, flanked by the staggering masses of the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. Walking this avenue was a profound ceremonial experience, a journey through a landscape of immense symbolic power. This was not a city designed for casual strolling. It was a stage for ritual, its entire layout engineered to inspire awe and reinforce a specific worldview. The pyramids were not just tombs or temples. They were sacred mountains, and the avenue itself was believed to be a path to the realm of the gods and the underworld. Every sunrise, every solstice, was marked with precision against this stone canvas, aligning the city's geometry with the cosmos itself. This ancient practice of using a central axis to channel movement and command reverence finds a startling modern echo in the planned capital of Brasilia. There, the monumental axis serves the same purpose, guiding citizens past towering government buildings that embody national power and identity. Both cities, separated by 2,000 years, use the same blueprint to make a grand statement. The sheer scale and geometric precision of Teotihuacan required a powerful, centralized authority and a population united by a shared vision. The city's form was the physical expression of its culture's deepest spiritual beliefs. It shows us that long before modern architects, ancient planners understood that the very shape of a city could tell a story about creation, power, and humanity's place in the universe. This concept of a city as a powerful, centralized statement would be perfected by another empire, one that would leave its own indelible mark on the future of urban design. While the sacred cities of the Americas mirrored the cosmos, the Roman Empire perfected the art of the practical city. Its most powerful urban export was not a grand capital, but a simple, repeatable military blueprint, the Castrum. This was the ultimate modular city, a fortified square bisected by two main streets, the Cardo running north-south and the Decumanus running east-west, intersecting at the very heart of the camp. Wherever the legions marched, this identical grid was stamped onto the landscape, a prefabricated architecture of conquest that overnight became a new town. From the sun-baked ruins of Timgad in North Africa to the ancient foundations beneath London, the Castrum provided an instant urban kit. It guaranteed a central forum for commerce and politics, public baths for hygiene and socializing, and a predictable, defensible street network that could be expanded with mathematical precision. This was not a city designed for the gods but for the legionary. Its genius lay in its ruthless efficiency, prioritizing rapid troop movement, clear lines of sight for defense, and seamless administration. The Castrum was a machine for imposing order, a physical manifestation of Roman control that standardized life from Britain to Syria. You can still walk this Roman plan today. In Florence, the old city center perfectly follows the grid of the ancient Roman Castrum, with the Piazza della Repubblica marking the original forum. In Cologne, Germany, the main shopping street, the Hohe Strasse, sits directly atop the ancient Cardo. This blueprint exported a specific model of Romanness, a civic package that included not just walls and streets, but an entire way of life centered on utility, trade, and governance. It demonstrates how a simple, replicable formula can shape the geography of an empire and endure for 2,000 years, its pragmatic bones still supporting the vibrant flesh of modern European cities. This Roman focus on order and control, born from military necessity, would find a powerful and beautiful new expression under a different banner. From the practical grid of the Roman Castrum, we leap forward to a city of pure geometric idealism. The round city of Baghdad, originally named Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace, was conceived in the 8th century as a perfect circle. Encircled by massive defensive walls, its plan was a series of concentric rings with 4 grand gates aligned to the cardinal directions. These gates did not open onto chaotic streets, but onto straight avenues that all converged at the absolute center of the world, the caliph's immense palace and the city's great mosque. This was not a design born of military efficiency or organic growth. It was a deliberate, powerful symbol. The circular form represented the universe itself, with the caliph, as God's deputy on earth, sitting at its very heart. His authority radiated outward along those 4 main streets, touching every corner of his domain. The entire city was a statement of cosmic unity and absolute centralized power. Historians of Islamic architecture explain that this perfect geometry was not just symbolic. It was derived from advanced astronomical knowledge and complex philosophical principles, an attempt to build a functioning microcosm of a harmonious universe. Every radial street channeled all movement, all commerce, and all vision toward that central core, physically emphasizing that religion and state were the twin pillars of society. While the original circular form of Baghdad was eventually swallowed by the city's expansion, its blueprint for radial power endures. You can feel its echo in the swirling chaos of Paris's Place Charles de Gaulle, where a dozen avenues spin out from the Arc de Triomphe, a modern monument to national power. You see it in countless circular plazas and roundabouts that force traffic to orbit a central point, creating a powerful urban focal point. This was urban planning as high philosophy, a brief but stunning moment where a city was built not just for people, but as a perfect diagram of an ideal world order. This fusion of deep faith and the necessities of commerce would forge yet another enduring urban blueprint. Deep within the Cambodian jungle, the city of Angkor Thom materialized as a perfect cosmic diagram carved in stone. Its layout was a sacred mandala, a square representing the earthly world enclosed by a circular wall and moat that mirrored the celestial spheres. At its absolute center rose the enigmatic Bayon Temple, its multitude of serene stone faces gazing outward from the summit. This temple was not merely a place of worship, it was the architectural embodiment of Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. The city walls were the mountain ranges encircling that cosmic center, and the vast moat was the world ocean. Every element of the city, from its grand scale down to the intricate carvings on its gates, was a piece of a vast three-dimensional spiritual map. The 5 monumental gates, each crowned with 4 gigantic faces, were far more than defensive structures. They served as powerful thresholds, marking the transition from the profane, chaotic wilderness into the divinely ordered space of the city. To enter through one of these gates was to cross a sacred boundary, embarking on a deliberate journey inward toward enlightenment. The straight avenues leading from the gates directly to the central temple complex guided this pilgrimage, making the act of moving through the city a form of devotional practice. This ancient principle of using urban design to facilitate a spiritual journey finds a remarkable modern echo. Consider the concentric ring roads of Moscow, which channel traffic in ever tighter circles toward the political and historical power of the Kremlin at its heart. Or look at Beijing, where multiple ring roads organize the city's expansion around the symbolic center of the Forbidden City and Tiananmen Square. While our modern pilgrimage may be one of commerce or commute, the underlying blueprint of a powerful core radiating order outward through concentric rings is strikingly similar. The builders of Angkor Thom understood that a city's shape could do more than house its people. It could tell a story about the nature of reality itself, guiding every citizen through a physical landscape that was also a profound spiritual lesson. This grand, symbolic planning represents one extreme of urban design, but from the cosmic order of the Khmer Empire, our journey now descends into the winding, chaotic, and surprisingly purposeful streets of the medieval world. The rigid geometries of imperial cities gave way to a different kind of logic on the cobblestone streets of medieval Europe. In a city like Bruges, urban form was not imposed by a single planner's vision but unfolded slowly, like a living organism. Its heart was the bustling marketplace and the soaring cathedral, a central core from which a tangled web of streets and alleyways organically unwound. These winding paths did not follow a ruler's straight edge. They traced the curves of ancient riverbanks, followed the boundaries of long-vanished farms, and meandered along the routes of pedestrian desire. This was not chaos, but a complex order born from centuries of incremental adaptation to local needs and the lay of the land. Walking through Bruges feels fundamentally different from marching through a Roman castrum. The experience is intimate, full of surprises, with every turn revealing a hidden courtyard or a small, unexpected square. This very human scale, with its irregular patterns and dead ends, created neighborhoods that were naturally defensible against intruders and fostered incredibly tight-knit social bonds. Your neighbors were not just people who lived on your street, they were people you encountered in the same cramped lanes every single day. Urban theorists point out that this medieval blueprint prefigures the most beloved old quarters of our modern megacities. You can feel the spirit of Bruges in the labyrinthine streets of Prague's old town, where getting lost is part of the charm. You find it in the tangled, historic core of Boston, where the Freedom Trail snakes along a path laid down by cows and colonists long before the grid was ever imagined. These spaces prioritize the pedestrian over the procession, community over central authority. They remind us that some of the most successful and enduring urban environments are not the product of top-down command, but the accumulated wisdom of countless small, communal decisions. This organic pattern is a testament to the intelligence of collective, bottom-up evolution. Yet, even as these medieval cities thrived in their complexity, a new age was dawning, one that would seek to bring the clarity of the ancients back to the forefront of city building. The medieval city's organic tangle was a product of community, but the Renaissance mind saw a different potential. A new generation of architects and thinkers looked at those winding streets and envisioned something far more perfect, a city of pure reason and geometry. They dreamed of the ideal city, a star-shaped fortress of the mind. Architects like Filaret and Leon Battista Alberti did not just draw buildings. They designed entire societies on paper, creating radial street plans bursting from a central piazza like rays from the sun. These were not just towns, they were philosophical manifestos carved in stone, blending humanist ideals with the brutal necessities of defense. Their star shapes were not fanciful, they were functional. The pointed bastions at each corner of the star allowed defending forces to cover every inch of the walls with cannon fire, making these cities virtually impregnable forts. Yet within these defensive walls, the plan was all about harmony and human dignity. The wide, straight radial avenues were designed to create beautiful, long sightlines, celebrating the new science of perspective. They channeled the citizens' view, and their movement toward grand public buildings and harmonious piazzas meant for an enlightened community to gather. This was urban planning as a self-conscious art and science, a belief that the right geometry could actually produce the perfect society. While most of these grand designs remained as beautiful drawings, one stunning example was actually built. The northern Italian town of Pomonova stands today as a perfect nine-pointed star, a living museum of this Renaissance ideal. Its geometric precision is so absolute it feels almost surreal. And the influence of this radial thinking did not end at the city walls. You can trace its lines directly onto the map of Washington, D.C., where grand diagonal avenues slice across the grid, creating powerful visual corridors and monumental intersections that were designed to impress upon the citizen the grandeur and order of the nation. The Renaissance ideal city was a pivotal moment, a declaration that a city could be a deliberate tool for shaping a better human experience. This grand ambition to reshape the urban experience would soon be harnessed by an absolute monarchy, leading to an era of breathtaking and brutally straight transformations. The Renaissance dream of geometric perfection found its ultimate expression not in a republic, but in the court of an absolute king. Louis XIV's Versailles was more than a palace. It was an entire landscape subdued to a single, overwhelming vision of power. The design is a breathtaking exercise in Baroque axiality, with every avenue, garden path, and canal radiating from the king's bedroom at the very center of the universe. This was not a city that grew, it was a statement that was built. The plan used forced perspective with ruthless brilliance, directing the gaze along endless vistas that all culminated in symbols of royal authority. The palace itself, a statue of Apollo, the Grand Canal. Nothing was left to chance. The entire environment, from the meticulously trimmed hedges to the precise alignment of the town's streets, was engineered to glorify the Sun King and remind every courtier, every visitor of their place in a rigid social hierarchy. This blueprint of using urban design as an instrument of pure spectacle and control was eagerly exported. You can feel the ghost of Versailles in the three great avenues that converge upon the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, a radial plan imposed by Peter the Great to proclaim Russia's modern might. You see it again in the grand ceremonial axis of New Delhi, designed by the British Raj to dominate the landscape and awe its subjects. This was urban form as political theater, a blueprint demonstrating that a city's layout could be the most powerful propaganda tool imaginable. But this age of absolutist splendor, with its singular focus on royal glory, could not withstand the coming storm of industry and the entirely new, chaotic urban world it would create. The grand axial plans of kings and emperors could not withstand the raw, unplanned force of industry. As factories multiplied and populations swelled, a new kind of blueprint was required, one born not from cosmic ideals but from commercial necessity. This is the story of the industrial grid, a template of pure pragmatism whose most famous incarnation was stamped onto the island of Manhattan. In 1811, a group of commissioners imposed a relentless grid of 12 north-south avenues and 155 east-west streets across the entire length of the island, from the existing city at its southern tip all the way to rural farmland. It was a breathtaking act of abstraction, a geometric cage thrown over hills, streams, and valleys with utter indifference. The plan was not designed for beauty or spiritual enlightenment. Its purpose was to turn land into a commodity that could be easily bought, sold, and developed. The commissioners famously admitted that they made no provision for parks or public squares, prioritizing the rapid, profitable subdivision of the island above all else. This was the ultimate commercial blueprint, and it would become the default model for the explosive growth of American cities from Chicago to Salt Lake City. The grid's ruthless uniformity was its genius. It created standard-sized blocks that simplified the sale of property and made the expansion of infrastructure like water mains and gas lines a predictable, repeatable process. It allowed for the relentless logic of the real estate market to operate with maximum efficiency, but this efficiency came at a cost. The natural topography of Manhattan was largely erased, its hills leveled and its streams buried in pipes to make way for the unyielding geometry of the plan. The result was a streetscape of remarkable repetition, where one block could feel almost identical to the next for miles on end. This was urban planning as a tool for a democratic, if brutal, form of land distribution. In theory, every plot on the grid was equal, a blank slate for commerce and ambition. The industrial grid is a powerful testament to how overwhelming economic forces can dictate the very shape of a city, creating an environment optimized for transaction and movement, but often starved of the unexpected beauty and communal spaces that older patterns provided. As these dense grids of brick and steel reached their choking point, a powerful reaction began to stir, a dream of a city that could breathe. But the industrial grid's relentless logic of profit provoked a powerful, human-centered rebellion. Amid the soot and congestion of late 19th century London, a humble parliamentary clerk named Ebenezer Howard envisioned a radical alternative, a blueprint he called the Garden City. Howard dreamed of self-contained communities, each limited in size and encircled by a permanent agricultural greenbelt. These were not mere suburbs, but complete towns designed to offer the social opportunity of the city and the healthful beauty of the countryside, all in one balanced package. His iconic diagram showed a series of concentric circles, with radial avenues leading inward from the greenbelt to a central garden, ringed by civic institutions like the library and town hall. This was a complete inversion of the industrial city's priorities. The Garden City was not for maximizing land value, but for nurturing human well-being. Its very design promoted health, social reform, and a daily connection to nature through deliberate, thoughtful planning. Howard's vision was so compelling that it sparked a global movement. The world's first garden city, Letchworth in England, rose from the countryside as a living test of his ideas. Across the Atlantic, the picturesque, winding lanes and generous parks of Riverside, Illinois, became a direct American interpretation, setting the template for the leafy suburbs that would later define the 20th century American dream. Howard's concept of limiting a city's growth and preserving agricultural land was revolutionary for its time. a direct precursor to our modern urban growth boundaries and the entire conversation around sustainable development. He planted a seed, proving that a city could be designed as a holistic system for living, not just a machine for commerce. This profound focus on integrating nature into the urban fabric would soon find a different, yet equally powerful, expression in the very heart of a crowded metropolis. The dream of a garden city offered a humane escape from the industrial grid, but another radical thinker proposed a solution not of circles, but of a single, endless line. At the close of the 19th century, Spanish engineer Arturo Soria y Mota unveiled his concept for the linear city, a blueprint that stretched the very definition of urban form. He envisioned a single, colossal spine of infrastructure, a main thoroughfare for trains, trams, and utilities, with the entire city unfolding in parallel bands along its length. On one side would lie a narrow strip of residential buildings, each with its own garden, and beyond that, open countryside. On the other side, a band for industry and agriculture. This was a city without a dense, congested core. Its most revolutionary feature was its theoretical ability to grow infinitely, simply by extending the line in either direction. Soria y Mota argued this would eliminate monstrous commutes, as every resident would live a short walk from the central transport spine that connected them to work and services. The city and the country would not be separated but seamlessly woven together. While he managed to build a small section of his linear plan in Madrid, the full vision was never realized. Yet his ideas proved prophetic. Look at a map of the northeastern United States, and you see a linear city in all but name. The dense, nearly continuous urban corridor stretching from Boston through New York and down to Washington, D.C. along the Interstate 95 highway is a perfect, if unplanned, example of this linear development. You see it in the Randstad region of the Netherlands, where a ring of cities including Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague form a linear urban horseshoe connected by high-speed rail and motorways. These are modern megaregions that function as a single, decentralized economic unit, challenging the ancient idea that a city must have one powerful center. The legacy of Soria y Mota's blueprint is also visible in the commercial strips that line our highways, where businesses align themselves in a single band of development along a traffic artery. His concept forced planners to consider the city not as a contained shape, but as a dynamic flow along a line, a principle that continues to guide the planning of transit-oriented development today. This horizontal stretching of the urban form was a direct challenge to centralized power, but as available land dwindled, the only direction left to build was up, leading to a new blueprint that would forever alter the skyline. The clean, green lines of the Ville Radieuse exist only on paper, yet they have fundamentally reshaped our world. Conceived by the architect Le Corbusier in the 1920s, this radiant city was a breathtakingly radical vision. He proposed demolishing the chaotic, historic cores of existing cities and replacing them with an orderly landscape of identical glass and steel skyscrapers. These colossal cruciform towers would house millions, but they would be set within vast, open parks, creating a city of pure green space and sunlight. Elevated highways would whisk traffic above the ground, and every function of urban life would be strictly separated into distinct zones for living, working, shopping, and recreation. This was the ultimate machine for modern living, a utopian blueprint that promised to bring order, light, and fresh air to the crowded, polluted industrial metropolis. Le Corbusier was not just designing buildings, he was proposing a totalizing system, a belief that technology and rational planning could solve every urban ill. The influence of this powerful, if chilling, vision is undeniable. You can walk through its legacy in the superblocks and monumental government squares of Brasilia, and in the organized sectors of Chandigarh, India, a city Le Corbusier himself helped design. These places embody the modernist dream of a clean, efficient, and orderly urban future. Yet, for all its lofty ideals, the radiant city had a profound flaw. Its sheer scale was inhuman, reducing people to tiny specks in a vast, abstract plan. The strict segregation of functions meant that the vibrant, messy, and spontaneous interactions of a traditional street life were engineered out of existence. The result, in many implementations, was often a sense of social isolation and a landscape that felt sterile and unwelcoming. This blueprint represents the absolute apex of top-down modernist planning, a faith in the power of a single vision to reshape society for its own good. But such a powerful, centralized philosophy was bound to provoke an equally powerful reaction, a call for a return to the human scale that modernism had so carelessly discarded. The sterile geometry of modernism cried out for a human antidote, and it arrived in the form of a simple, powerful diagram. In the 1920s, as Le Corbusier dreamed of his radiant city, an American sociologist named Clarence was sketching a quieter revolution. His concept was the neighborhood unit, a blueprint for a self-contained residential area designed not for cars or for industry, but for the daily life of families. At its heart was the elementary school, a community anchor placed within a 5-minute walk from every home. Shops were confined to the periphery, and a key innovation was the restriction of through traffic. Arterial roads would form a protective belt around the neighborhood, while inside, a network of quiet, curving streets and cul-de-sacs would ensure that the only people driving through were the people who lived there. This was a profound shift in priority, placing the safety of children and the social bonds of a community above the unimpeded flow of automobiles. Perry was not just designing streets, he was engineering a specific kind of social experience. He envisioned a place where neighbors would naturally interact at the local park, where children could walk safely to school, and where a clear, defined boundary gave residents a shared sense of identity and place. This formula became the genetic code for the American suburb after the Second World War. From Levittown to thousands of similar developments, the model of the cul-de-sac, the local elementary school, and the peripheral shopping center was replicated on an immense scale. Its influence spread globally, embedded into planning codes that still prioritize residential tranquility. Perry's blueprint codified a powerful and deeply appealing ideal of community life. Yet, this very focus on creating a safe, inward-looking haven would soon inspire a critique that sought to reintroduce the vibrant chaos of the traditional city. While the West was perfecting the static neighborhood unit, a radical new philosophy of impermanence was taking root in post-war Japan. The Metabolist movement saw the city not as a fixed monument, but as a living, breathing entity, constantly growing, decaying, and regenerating like a forest. These architects proposed a spine and cell model where a permanent, rigid megastructure, often raised on colossal stilts, would serve as the city's backbone. Onto this spine, individual living capsules, like prefabricated rooms, could be plugged in, replaced, or upgraded as needs changed over time. This was architecture as a dynamic process, a direct rejection of the idea that a building must be eternal. The most famous built example, Kisho Kurokawa's Nakajin Capsule Tower in Tokyo, stands as a haunting monument to this vision. It was a tower of tiny, boxy apartments, each one a self-contained unit bolted onto a central core, designed to be swapped out every 25 years. Though the replacement never happened, the building itself was a powerful physical manifesto. It argued that cities should be adaptable, sustainable, and responsive, able to shed their old skin and grow anew without the waste of total demolition. The metabolists were decades ahead of their time, prefiguring our modern concepts of plug-and-play architecture and the flexible, reconfigurable spaces seen in some of today's most advanced tech campuses. Their visionary blueprints offer a compelling model for a future where our buildings, and even our cities, can learn to evolve with the same fluid grace as the natural world. This profound respect for organic process and timeless adaptation brings us back to a principle so fundamental it has guided builders for millennia. Varanasi defies every conventional rule of urban planning. Its labyrinthine alleys were not drawn by an architect's straightedge, but by the footsteps of millions of pilgrims over 3,000 years. The city is a living body, with the Ganges River as its spiritual artery and the stone steps of the Ghats as its porous skin. Every twist and turn in these narrow lanes is a deliberate part of a vast, open-air temple. This is not a city you navigate for efficiency, but one you experience as a ritual. The main movement is a descent toward the sacred river, a daily reenactment of the soul's journey toward purification. The entire urban fabric is choreographed around this central act, creating a blueprint where spiritual practice is the ultimate city planner. Modern cities often try to recreate this magnetic pull of the waterfront. Think of the cultural corridor along the Seine in Paris, where museums, parks, and promenades line the banks, drawing both locals and tourists to the water's edge. Or consider San Francisco's Embarcadero, a revitalized thoroughfare that turned its back on industry to embrace the bay with public plazas and ferry terminals. Yet in these modern examples, the connection is largely recreational or aesthetic. In Varanasi, the relationship is existential. The city is a precise map of Hindu cosmology, where every ghat marks a different mythic event and every temple a different divine manifestation. To walk from the fiery ghat of cremation to the ghat of enlightenment is to traverse the cycle of life, death, and rebirth in a single morning. The city's chaotic, organic form is, in fact, a deeply structured sequence of spiritual revelations. This reveals a profound truth about urban design. The most powerful and enduring forces shaping a city are not always edicts or blueprints, but the slow, persistent accumulation of cultural memory and sacred intention. Perched on a knife-edge ridge in the Andes, Machu Picchu feels less like a city built upon a mountain and more like a city that grew from it. This ancient Inca sanctuary is a breathtaking demonstration of what we now call landscape urbanism, a philosophy where the city is a careful collaborator with its environment, not a conqueror. The Incas did not level the mountain to impose their will. Instead, they listened to its form, allowing the natural contours of the ridge to dictate the placement of every stone. They carved hundreds of agricultural terraces into the steep slopes, creating both farmland and a sophisticated system to prevent erosion and manage water drainage. Their buildings nestled into the rock, their plazas followed the curve of the land, and their sacred structures were precisely aligned with the solstice sun and the movements of key stars. This was a deep, reciprocal relationship with the site, an engineering marvel that achieved perfect harmony between human need and the mountain's own logic. This ancient blueprint of adaptation is more relevant than ever. You can see its modern echo in the vertiginous neighborhoods of Hong Kong, where skyscrapers climb the hillsides in a stepped formation, or in the topography-responsive design of Seattle, where the city's famous hills and waterways fundamentally shape its layout and infrastructure. The lesson of Machu Picchu is one of resilience through integration. It teaches us that the most enduring cities are those that work with the forces of nature, rather than fighting a perpetual, exhausting war against them. From this harmonious mountain citadel, our search for prophetic blueprints leads us to a starkly different environment, where another civilization mastered the art of survival in an unforgiving landscape. Rising from the arid plains of Yemen, the 16th century city of Shibam presents a skyline that should not exist. Encircled by a protective wall, its dense cluster of 5 to 11-story mud brick towers creates a stunning silhouette against the desert sky, earning it the name the Manhattan of the desert. But this was not a pursuit of grandeur. This vertical urban form was a direct, brilliant response to existential threats. With scarce, precious agricultural land in the valley, building upward was the only way to house a large population without sacrificing the fields that fed them. The compact, fortified footprint was also a powerful defense against rival tribes, concentrating the community's strength within a single, formidable wall. Each towering house was a self-contained world, with ground floors for animals and storage, and upper levels for living quarters and family gatherings, creating a vibrant, mixed-use vertical neighborhood centuries before the term was coined. This ancient design is a masterclass in environmental logic. The tight clustering of the towers creates shade for the narrow streets below, a natural cooling system for the brutal heat. The very shape of the buildings, with their minimized external wall surface, reduces heat gain and protects the fragile mud brick from erosion. Every architectural decision was a calculated move in the game of survival, resulting in a high-density, sustainable urban model that modern planners are only now rediscovering. Shibam stands as a powerful monument to human ingenuity, proving that the most forward-thinking urban blueprints are often born not from abundance, but from profound necessity. This ancient dialogue between a city and its harsh environment finds a parallel not in another desert, but in a city defined by its relationship to a vast and powerful body of water. Venice floats on a lagoon, a city of stone and water where the very idea of a street is reimagined. Its blueprint is a tracery of canals, a fluid grid that dictated where every palace, every market, and every humble home would be built. This was not a city imposed upon the land, but one woven into the fabric of the water itself. The Grand Canal is not just a tourist attraction. It was and remains the city's main boulevard, a liquid highway for commerce and ceremony, with smaller rios acting as neighborhood lanes. In Venice, the infrastructure is the public space. The waterway is the road, the bridge is the intersection, and the stone quays are the sidewalks. This intimate integration of transport and daily life created an urban ecosystem of astonishing adaptability. The city's unique form was a direct response to a trio of powerful forces. Its island location provided a natural defense against invaders. Its complex hydrology, the push and pull of the tides, demanded a flexible and floating foundation. And its position as a trading superpower required a logistics network where goods could be unloaded from ocean-going galleys directly into the basement warehouses of merchant homes. This created a city that is both incredibly fragile, susceptible to the rising Adriatic, and profoundly resilient, having survived for centuries on this improbable site. The Venetian blueprint is now a vital lesson for our own century. Modern coastal cities from Amsterdam to Miami, grappling with sea level rise, are looking to this ancient model of living with water, not just fighting it. They are exploring canal-based districts, floating neighborhoods, and waterborne public transport, understanding that the future of urbanism may require embracing fluidity over rigid land-based planning. The city teaches us that a metropolis can draw its identity, its structure, and its genius directly from its most challenging natural element. This profound dialogue between a city and its environment finds a different yet equally powerful expression in the very heart of the desert. The ancient planners of Beijing understood the city as a living body, breathing with the energy of the earth itself. Its design was a masterwork of feng shui, a complex art of placement that sought to balance the built environment with the invisible currents of chi. The entire city was oriented along a powerful north-south axis, a spiritual backbone that anchored the forbidden city at its center. But this was not just about symmetry. To the north, the artificial Prospect Hill provided a protective barrier, a symbolic tortoise shielding the city from malevolent winds. To the south, the winding course of the Golden River was preserved, its waters channeled to gather and circulate beneficial energy. Every wall, every gate, every major structure was positioned in a precise, calculated relationship to these natural features, creating an urban ecosystem designed for maximum harmony and imperial stability. This was a holistic system of ecological wisdom, where the city's form was a direct response to the local climate, hydrology, and topography. The placement of buildings considered sun angles for warmth in winter and prevailing winds for cooling in summer, long before the term bioclimatic design was ever coined. Today, this ancient blueprint is experiencing a remarkable resurgence. Modern architects and planners seeking sustainable solutions are looking back to these principles. They are designing buildings that follow solar paths, orienting neighborhoods to capture cooling breezes, and integrating water features not just for aesthetics but to moderate microclimates. The goal is the same now as it was then, to create a built environment that exists in a dynamic, positive exchange with its natural surroundings, not in opposition to it. This profound African wisdom reminds us that the most advanced urban plans are often those that listen most closely to the whispers of the land itself. Far to the south, the stone ruins of Great Zimbabwe tell a story of power sculpted from the very land itself. Rising in the 11th century, this was not a city of straight lines and right angles, but one of elegant, flowing curves. Its massive, dry stone walls, built without mortar, sweep across the hilltops and valleys, following the natural contours of the landscape in a stunning embrace of granite and earth. This was a distinctly African urban form, a blueprint of concentric circles that organized society into clear yet integrated zones. At the heart stood the hill complex, a secluded acropolis for the royalty and spiritual leaders. Below, the sprawling valley ruins housed the citizens, the artisans, and the traders, and between them, the breathtaking Great Enclosure with its iconic conical tower, likely served as a sacred ceremonial ground. This layout was a direct physical manifestation of the Shona social structure, creating hierarchy and security without the need for a rigid grid. The seamless integration of the architecture with the local topography demonstrates a profound understanding of place. The builders used the landscape itself as a foundational element of their design, crafting a city that felt both monumental and naturally emergent. This stands in stark contrast to the imposed geometries of many other traditions, offering a powerful reminder that urban brilliance flourished in countless forms across the globe, each one a unique solution to the universal human needs for community, order, and meaning. Having journeyed from the Indus Valley to the Zimbabwean plateau, a common thread now emerges from these 23 prophetic blueprints. These recurring patterns form a kind of universal language for city building, a deep grammar of urban form that transcends culture and century. The grid gives us a framework for order and equality. The axis channels our movement toward a singular idea of power or divinity. The radial plan focuses all energy on a central core, while the organic form allows a community to adapt and grow like a living thing. These are not just aesthetic choices, they are archetypal solutions born again and again from our shared need to organize ourselves, to find meaning in our surroundings, to feel secure within our walls, and to forge lasting bonds with our neighbors. Your own city is almost certainly a complex tapestry woven from these ancient threads. It might have the rigid grid of Mohenjo-Daro for its downtown commerce, the ceremonial axis of Thebes for its government district, the winding medieval lanes of Bruges in its oldest residential quarters, and the neighborhood unit model defining its suburban fringes. These are urban palimpsests where the old blueprints are never truly erased, only painted over with new layers of technology and shifting social demands. When you understand these patterns, you begin to see the genetic code of the urban landscape. You can suddenly diagnose why a vast, windswept plaza feels alienating. It lacks the human scale of the organic plan. You understand why a city centered on a grand monument feels so purposeful. It is harnessing the ancient power of the axis. This knowledge reveals the profound continuity in the human project of city building, a story that connects the sun-baked bricks of the Indus Valley to the glass towers of a modern metropolis. With this deeper vision of where our cities have come from, we can now ask the most important question of all. Where are they going next? Our journey through these 23 prophetic designs uncovers a stunning truth. The skylines of our modern megacities are not sudden inventions. They are chapters in a much older story, a conversation across time written in stone, steel, and asphalt. From the sacred axis of Thebes to the relentless industrial grid of New York, these patterns have survived because they work. They answer fundamental human needs for order, for meaning, for community, and for connection to something larger than ourselves. This realization transforms urban planning from a mere technical exercise into a deeply cultural, even spiritual, endeavor. It connects the commuter on a subway to the pilgrim walking the Avenue of the Dead, both moving through spaces shaped by the same timeless principles. As we confront the monumental challenges of this new century, from a changing climate to rising inequality and extreme density, these ancient wisdoms offer a surprisingly relevant toolkit. They teach us about building with the land, as at Machu Picchu, not just upon it. They show us how to create dense, vertical communities like Shibam without sacrificing sustainability. They remind us that a city's true success is measured not only in its economic output, but in the health of its social fabric, a lesson encoded in the neighborhood unit and the medieval street. So the next time you walk through your own city, pause for a moment, look past the glass and the traffic. Can you spot the ghost of a Roman cardo in your main downtown street? Do you feel the pull of a ceremonial axis drawing you toward a central square? These ancient blueprints are all around you, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be seen. They ask us a final, compelling question. If our cities are still being built from these enduring templates, what new patterns will our own generation contribute to this ancient, ongoing story? Share in the comments which prophetic blueprint you recognize most clearly where you live, and join us for more journeys into the hidden mysteries of our